Welcome to an episode of Realistically, where we deconstruct current events of the week. Today we have Ben Rubinstein joining us, and hopefully we have people in our audience that are joining us. Yes, Final Forest 80 says hi. Hi, Final Forest 80.
Hello.
Hello. So, how are you doing, Ben?
I'm good. I'm good. It's the weekend. It's the rainy season here in Nicaragua. It's not raining quite yet, but it could start any minute.
So, in the rainy season, does it rain every day?
Most days, depending on how deep into the season you are. Yeah, it rains a lot. It rains a lot, but we don't have like winter here or fall. We just have rainy or not rainy. So
That makes sense because it's in the tropics.
yeah, Central America.
Yeah. It's interesting because Nicaragua has been in the news recently for two things. One is their case against ICC case against Germany. Two, now they're joining BRICS. Do you want to talk about either or both of them?
Yeah. So the ICC case against Germany was on the precedent that had previously been established by Nicaragua for having the ability to actually win an ICC case. That was I believe, in the 80s.
For the
I
Contras.
Yeah, for the Contras, and they were awarded by the ICC $17 billion, which the U.S. to this day has still not paid. Um, that would be enough to eradicate poverty in this country. It is a very poor country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, However, there is a growing middle class, and the economy is steadily improving, slowly but surely. One of the, and I guess that's a decent segue to the next question you asked. I mean, Germany, real quick, Germany is, supposedly reduced its arms sales to Israel as a result of this case. So Nicaragua is calling it a win. That being said, jumping to the economy and BRICS, they've applied to join BRICS. Russia has signaled that they'd be open to it. Russia is chairing BRICS at this point. Um, and they're also in talks, which was reported this week, to start trading in national currencies. Um,
De-dollarization.
De-dollarization, yeah, and I guess that is sort of goes hand in hand with joining BRICS. Um, U.S. dollars are almost as common in Nicaragua as is the national currency, the Nicaraguan Cordoba. It's about 720 Nicaraguan Cordoba to a 20 U.S. dollar bill, and so U.S. dollar bills, $20, a $20 bill is a, a very common form of currency here.
Mm.
You often will, if you have them, if you have dollars, you will pay with a 20, and you will receive your change back in Cordoba. Of course, there's always some math that goes along with it, and if you're a gringo like myself, you have to be careful with how much change they actually give back. But that being said, nobody uses rubles here. Nobody. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost impossible to exchange them. You would have to go to like a a central bank.
Uh-huh.
Essentially, regular bank branches won't give change your rubles. I tried. um,
Well, if you need help, I can help you later.
no, I don't have any more rubles. I haven't had some for some time now. If I do, they're in my backpack for sort of to remind me of my trip to Moscow.
Uh-huh.
So, Nicaragua, again, very poor country, but they do have something that has been in the works for many years now and has hit multiple roadblocks, and that is a sort of a rival to the Panama Canal.
And
Uh,
and let me quickly explain. The Nicaragua Canal. This week I wrote we at historically.net. We wrote an article about the how the Panama Canal started, and actually even before the Panama Canal, the first proposal was a canal through Nicaragua.
yeah, that doesn't actually, I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. Um, Nicaragua has a big lake going
Managua?
in the middle. Yeah, Lake Managua, I believe, in the
Don't
middle.
they have the only freshwater sharks there?
They do. Yeah, I was actually at that beach for vacation maybe a month or two ago. It's off the colonial city of Granada, and I say colonial because like the colonial infrastructure and buildings are still very much that's what's there. It's a beautiful city. They're known for having some of the best chocolate in Nicaragua. They're known for their and the chocolate is incredible. If you ever come to Nicaragua, you have to try that.
Okay.
But they're also known for their freshwater sharks.
Mm-hmm.
In Granada, also has a very famous cathedral that is quite beautiful and large. And they also have these islands. There's something like almost 400 small little islands that were created by a volcano explosion a very long time ago. And so, not Nicaragua's economy is tourism is important. So that's I guess part of the reason why I'm going on about this, apart from my just genuine like of the place. Um, and so yeah, you have these little islands, and you can take a tour of the islands, and one of them has monkeys on them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them have mansions. Even
Wait. The island is within the lake?
no, this is a different part of the country with Granada at Granada.
Okay.
Maybe about a 2-hour drive from that lake.
Okay.
Anyways, so going on about this lake, yeah. So the idea of this canal would be to connect one half of Nicaragua, which sits on one side of the ocean, to the other half, which sits on another ocean.
Through the lake.
And it would, in the canal itself, would pass through this lake. I actually have a graphic sitting around somewhere. I don't know. It'd probably be difficult to bring that up right now, but
Let me see if I can look it up while you continue to talk.
yeah, if you look up the Wikipedia page of the Nicaraguan Canal, it'll give you 4 proposed points. And maybe a little less than a year ago, I received some of the Discord file leaks, which were allegedly shared by Alex Texeria.
Who's that?
He was a United States National Guardman in Massachusetts who was trying to brag to his gaming buddies or something that
He was trying to do what?
brag to his gaming buddies that he had like top secret clearance. And to do this, he shared documents, top secret documents, which included Ukrainian battle plans.
Oh, now I remember. Yes.
I'm sure you heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember now. It just took me a while.
In those leaks were 2 pages about Nicaragua. In the leaks, I didn't get access to all of the leaks, but the ones I did, about 76 pages or something, had 2 pages about Nicaragua. One was about Nicaragua and Iran, and it didn't say anything particularly interesting. The other, however, was very interesting because it said, according to U.S. intelligence in this document, Nicaragua was in negotiations to build and to contract their surveying and planning of a deep water port in Bluefields. Now, Bluefields is in the Caribbean coast. And if you look at the 4 proposed starting points of this Nicaraguan canal, 2 of them originate in Bluefields. So the thinking is that this deep water port that will eventually be built by the Chinese, as has been agreed to in the past, would be the starting point of the canal when it comes to fruition. So behind the scenes, it seems that the Nicaraguan government is very much pushing forward with this canal project. The Comandante Daniel Ortega, I believe last year around the same time, said that the canal is an absolute necessity because of the demand of international trade. And recently, the Nicaraguan parliament amended the laws pertaining to the ownership of the canal. which they would only do if they were preparing for going forward with that project. So the Nicaraguan Canal, as I said, it's faced roadblocks. It's been had opposition funded by Western NGOs trying to talk about, how it interferes with indigenous rights. That's not true. The
Mhm.
Nicaraguan government sends people around to indigenous communities who are more remote
Mhm.
than some other parts of the country, and gets their opinions and advice on things and make sure they're taken care of. Actually, the indigenous people are some of the most ardent Sandinistas in the country.
Mhm.
So and then there was a Chinese businessman who kind of just didn't deliver, and now so the Nicaraguan government a few years later in 2021 recognized the People's Republic of China, severed relations with Russia, turned the embassy, Taiwanese embassy over. They seized the embassy and gave it to the Chinese, and they've continued seizing Taiwanese assets and giving those to the Chinese.
Okay, so basically, the Taiwan issue happened when there was a period when Ortega was kind of revolted out between 1996 and
Yeah,
2000.
and Taiwan was giving Nicaragua a lot of money during that time. So they ended up stopping, and well, I'm continue. Sorry.
So the U.S. ends up seeing this as Nicaragua getting more Chinese influence in, right?
Well, they are getting more Chinese influence. There's now a free trade agreement which was signed into force just a few months ago, and Chinese businesses are popping up everywhere. There are
One thing, banana bender. Yes, we are live. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely there is more Chinese influence here, unequivocally so. I mean, there are businesses popping up, as I said, throughout the country. Um, and that's a good thing because Nicaragua needs the trade. They need the commerce. Um, and if you go to these Chinese businesses, one of the largest criticisms of this sort of diplomatic form that China takes of establishing economic ties with other countries as a means to grow their influence, as opposed to bombing them, is that they don't hire like locals. They bring in cheap Chinese labor. That is not the case. If you go to
Mhm.
these Chinese stores, and I've been to a few, it's all Nicaraguans working there. There are perhaps one or two Chinese people there who are in managerial positions, but the majority of the labor is Nicaraguan labor, at least in Nicaragua. uh, Likely in other places too, but I can only really speak to my firsthand account of Nicaragua.
Mhm.
So yeah, so Nicaragua wants to join BRICS. It makes sense for Nicaragua to join BRICS. This canal has the potential to bring billions of dollars, not only to Nicaragua, but to all of Central America and Latin America. It
Okay.
could.
So let me quickly play the devil's advocate. The Panama Canal already exists. So what can the Nicaraguan Canal do that the Panama Canal cannot?
Well, the Nicaraguan canal is not very modern. Its water levels are low.
You mean
There's
Panama Canal?
Yeah, the Panama Canal is not very modern. The water levels are low, which causes ships to constantly stop. There's constantly stoppages of ship traffic for various reasons. Um, and it just cannot, as Commandante Daniel Ortega said, it just cannot adapt to the demands of international trade, which are far more significant than they were when the Panama Canal was built. So a second canal in this area, because Panama is very close to Nicaragua, but a second canal in this area could largely free up a lot of the over demand of the Panama Canal, route it through Nicaragua, possibly and likely at reduced costs, uh, quicker passages through certain routes, um, and that sort of thing. So it wouldn't be an empty canal by any means. It would be a bustling canal. It would create thousands or tens of thousands of jobs throughout Latin America, and it has the potential to eradicate poverty completely in Nicaragua and possibly other countries as well, in my opinion. Taxes, importing, exporting. Um, it seems to me that the Nicaraguan government is actively preparing for this. They're in discussions with Russia for airports. They're constantly bringing in new buses and um, paving new roads to improve the infrastructure. There's talks about trains, high speed trains, with Russia and China building these things. So they're actively improving the infrastructure of the country, and in my view, not just for the benefit of the people, which is very clear. Because the Nicaragua, again, poor country, has public transport, which most average Nicaraguans take, and a lot of those buses that they used were not in a good state. They're old and they're dangerous. Um, Christmas weekend, more than 20 people died because of a bus crash, and this was one of those old buses. So the need for these buses, these new modern buses, is quite significant, and both China and Russia have supplied new, modern, high quality buses to Nicaragua, and you can see them everywhere throughout the capital.
That makes sense. And because of these modern buses, now that it's a lot more safer to travel through the country, right?
Yeah, throughout the country, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that these bus crashes that would kill people were not a common occurrence, but they did happen from time to time. And of course, they are far less likely to have some sort of mechanical failure if it's a brand new modern bus. So it's very important, and a lot of people might scoff and say, so what? Buses? China's giving Nicaragua buses? So what? It's actually a really, really, really big deal. Nicaragua is a small country, so when you have 20-something people die on New Year's Day, on Christmas Day, it's a great tragedy for the entire country. Nicaragua has about 6 or 7 million people, so it's quite significant. Even just a few hundred buses is a major improvement in the quality of life for the average Nicaraguan.
That makes a lot of sense. And so what I see is that there's a general theme of improving infrastructure in Nicaragua, and this canal project is like one of the projects to improve the infrastructure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on a far greater scale than just a few buses. Because, as I said, a real Nicaraguan canal could just eradicate poverty entirely.
How?
By creating jobs, taxes, giving the government more money to develop infrastructure. It's a socialist government. The majority of the money that the government has goes to improving the country. Roads, hospitals, policing, security. I mean, food, agricultural things. So and healthcare is free. So if the Nicaraguan government has more money from taxes due to the comings and goings of cargo ships or people importing their things into Nicaragua and then shipping them off to the rest of Latin America, that's a massive economic boon for Nicaragua, and that money will be seen by the average Nicaraguan when they go to their local clinics, or they need to buy groceries, or anything, or they want to improve the quality of their schools. And not only that, but just jobs in general. A canal requires a lot of work, and that work is going to be done by Nicaraguans. And they'll be good paying jobs, and they will put food on the table for thousands, if not tens of thousands of Nicaraguans.
Okay, I'm again playing devil's advocate. And knowing that it goes through Lake Managua, is there any environmental risks to the lake?
I mean, if you if you build a canal through a lake, sure. Yes, but I would say that the Nicaraguan government is going to do the absolute utmost that they can to take care of the environment. Nicaragua is one of the leaders, if not the leader, on the continent for renewable energy. It's something that they take very seriously. They take solar panels and windmills very seriously. They take care of their environment in a way that other countries do not, especially the United States. So that being said, I am not one to, I think that poverty is a greater threat to humanity than the environment. And so I would not forsake the livelihoods of, millions of Nicaraguans for the sake of a single lake that can be, they could take money that they make from the canal and put it into cleaning the lake if they want. And I'm sure they actually will very much likely do that, because that is the kind of thing that the government here does.
Okay, so it seems like Nicaragua is a little wider than Panama. So the canal through Nicaragua is going to be a little bigger, right?
Yeah, it would be a lot bigger, actually. And that is part of the problem. The Panama Canal is small, whereas the Nicaraguan Canal, it would not be small. It would be quite wide and would enter into a large lake.
How many kilometers would the proposed canal be?
I don't know.
I'll Google it. Okay, continue to speak about the lake.
No, I almost just answered you in Spanish. I'm so used to talking.
Yo hablo español.
Panama. Oh, okay, Nicaraguan Canal. Here we go. Actually, I do want to see if I can bring this up.
The proposed Nicaragua Canal will be between 230 and 520 meters wide.
Yeah, so I have this graphic here of the canal. I don't know if I can hit share and then bring that up.
Janet, I'm not sure. I hope you can.
Okay, here we go. We go. Yeah. Can you see this?
No, but Janet, maybe she can help. I can see
it is on stream. Yeah. So as I was saying, Bluefields. This is where the Discord leaks said that the Chinese and the Nicaraguans were negotiating to survey a deep water port. It would cross here through Lake Managua and come out here. Now, it's actually not Lake Managua. Lake Managua is here, up above, but it would pass by Ometepe, and Ometepe is two large volcanoes. You can see them here. And it's a popular vacation spot. You have to take a ferry to go to them, but the canal likely would originate in Bluefields, come down here, pass through, and you'd be on the other side of the ocean. Mm-hmm. So the Panama Canal is here.
I see.
A lot shorter and a longer distance. It's I believe it is much further away from the United States, for example. Yes, it is. Yeah. So costs of international shipping would be reduced for goods coming to the United States, for example, or the rest of Latin America. And if you're coming from the other side, remember this is Latin America is quite large, and I'll just to give people a even better glimpse of it. Let me see if I can bring up this other Google map, just to show the importance of this canal. Actually, I can't do this without accidentally doxing myself. But anyways, yeah, if you look at a map of Nicaragua, you'll see that you need a canal to get to the other side of it if you're a shipping company. So yeah, I think it'll be a massive boon for the country, and it'll likely take years more. I would say 5, 10, maybe even 15 years before it's complete. But by that time, international demand for shipping and whatnot will be even higher than it is now.
That makes complete sense. Now, Who is Nicaragua's main trading partners nowadays?
The United States.
And the United States does like sometimes sanctions Nicaragua, and sometimes there's
Tricky relationship.
yeah, there's a tricky. So
Yeah.
so the idea of Nicaragua joining BRICS, is it to diversify its trading partners, or what is the goal?
Well, I think that Nicaragua realizes that they're vulnerable to sanctions. Their main trading partner tried to overthrow their government not so long ago. Um,
Constantly.
so it's a natural sort of reaction to want to find a different trading partners, and build up your defense against potential sanctions. And so that is what Nicaragua is doing. And not only that, but Nicaragua and the U.S. have been strong trading partners for decades.
So
And
what does
Nicaragua
Nicaragua sell usually? What's their main product?
well, that's another major problem here is that the production capacity is limited in all things but food. Now,
Mm.
that is important, not just because Nicaragua doesn't export very many things, but because no one ever, ever, ever goes hungry here.
Mm-hmm.
Food is incredibly cheap. Food is incredibly available, and Nicaragua is roughly 97% food sovereign, which
Mm.
means 97% of the food consumption that happens in Nicaragua is from food that is grown in Nicaragua.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so I think you're likely familiar with the quote, something to do with, if people don't have 3 meals a day, there could be a revolution. It's
Mm-hmm.
alluding. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but there's always 3 meals a day in Nicaragua, always. But that is the only thing they really produce for export. And coffee, of course, Nicaraguan coffee is world renowned. Even China wants Nicaraguan coffee because it's just so good. The worst Nicaraguan coffee is better than anything you'll ever get at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. um, and that is, and it's cheap too. A pound of Nicaraguan coffee. I mean, I buy my coffee once a month from the Association of Campesinos,
Uh-huh.
directly from them, and I pay $20. I get 5 pounds of coffee delivered to me, and it is premium coffee, grown in Chinotega, which is
Mm-hmm.
the most popular place for growing coffee in Nicaragua.
That makes sense. And so, unfortunately, so you're saying that Nicaragua doesn't have many industrial goods, and so its main export to the U.S. is food products.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's also a large marketing economy here. People
What
who
does that
participate,
mean?
well, marketing for companies, right?
Oh,
Online digital marketing. There's a ton of call centers here. Some of the best jobs here are actually call centers.
oh,
Um,
okay.
they're a way for people who are very poor to learn English and get a stable, comfortable job at a call center. And those are some of the best jobs you can find.
That okay. So okay. So and I guess with the canal project, it'll be more canal infrastructure related, like building the canal, overseeing it, seeing which ships are allowed to go in and out, and so forth, right?
Inspections, import tariffs, yeah, absolutely. I think it will vastly change the Nicaraguan economy, and that kind of commerce will bring more people in. It'll bring in not only just tourists, but it will bring in investors, people who want to have their companies here. And that's part of the great thing about the free trade agreement that Nicaragua signed with China. As I said, Chinese businesses are coming here. Chinese businesses see Nicaragua, they see Latin America
Mm-hmm.
as easy money, because the manufacturing cost in China is so low and they can sell it here. People need things. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of things that you want here are just not so easy to come by. A great example, behind me, you see sound panels to get rid of the echo in my office.
I don't see anything. I just see black, but
It's
good.
You just see black because they're gigantic 7 foot tall, 4 foot wide sound panels.
Uh-huh.
But if I wanted to buy the traditional 4x4, the small ones, it's $8
Mm-hmm.
a piece.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's $1,000 to do an office. Or I could just have some 7 foot panels custom built, which is easier. But my point here that I'm trying to illustrate is that things that are imported here are expensive. So a television in Nicaragua, a nice new modern large television, is more expensive here than
Mm-hmm.
it is in the United States. Cell phones are more expensive here than they are in the United States. Computers are more expensive here than they are in the United States. So with the free trade agreement, you now have all these new, much cheaper electronics coming in from China that you previously didn't have access to, or poor people didn't have access to. In fact, one of the most popular smartphones in Nicaragua is a Xiaomi, which is a
Oh,
Chinese brand.
I have a Xiaomi.
Yeah, so yeah, my girlfriend has a Xiaomi too. I bought it for her. It was $150. It works fantastically. $150 is a lot for a Nicaraguan, but the alternative is you're getting you don't have a cell phone, or you have something that is 10 years old that hardly functions.
Mm-hmm.
Which it just actually in itself is bad for the economy, because economies need smart devices to function. There are many people, especially those who work online, who use their cell phones to work, and they can't do that without smartphones. So smartphones very much open up economic opportunities for people. And so again, businesses coming in will make more businesses coming in. Ships sending, coming through Nicaragua through the canal will bring businesses in. They'll create jobs, and it's a sort of a multiplying effect.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you. Can you stick around for a little while? So, Janet, so that when we go through, let's go through the current events of the week.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
which one do you want to start with? Israel or Georgia?
Israel.
Okay. Janet, do you want to share the
My brother
news?
is the expert on Georgia.
Your brother is the expert on Georgia.
Yeah.
Okay. Janet, are you there?
But I do have a basic understanding just from listening to him talk.
Okay. I can explain. Okay, there it is. So what, I don't know if you've read this article, but what's so egregious about it is that they mentioned that prisoners are systematically tortured and sodomized, but it's completely buried under the lead. So inside the base where Israel has detained thousands of Gazans. So then you go over, you skip a few paragraphs. And so then here it says 8 former detainees, all of whom the military confirmed were held at the site, who spoke on the record, variously said they had been punched, kicked, beaten with batons, rifle butts, and handheld metal detectors while in custody. One said his ribs were broken after he was kneed in the chest, and the second detainee said his ribs broke after he was kicked and beaten with a rifle. A third said an assault that the third detainee said he witnessed. 7 said they had been forced to wear only a diaper while being interrogated. 3 said they received electric shocks during the interrogation. But then it gets worse.
And they're not allowed to sleep without permission either. If they sleep without permission, they'll get beaten and whatnot.
Okay. So then when you go to further, it says that during the visit, senior military doctors said they didn't observe anything. But then you see something even horrific. Where is that? So you see that they say that one of the detainees was sodomized with an electric rod.
Yeah, that may be in a different article. I'm not sure.
No, it's in this article. So when you go down, so to me, what it shows you the overall pro-Israel bias in that they really, really buried the lead here.
Yeah, you'd think that would kind of be what you start with, right?
Yeah.
Normally, you start with the most shocking thing first.
Exactly. And so this is just one of the thousands of abuses. These are the few cases we heard of. There are thousands we probably will never hear of for a while.
Yeah, it's horrific. You have regular Gazans, any military aged male, being accused of being Hamas and taken off to a torture camp. And it is, maybe I can find this tweet and show it to you, but I really wanted to, because I try to make the point that of the similarities between the Israeli government and Nazi Germany. Actually, here's the tweet right here. I'll bring this up.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do this. Yeah. I don't know. Let's see. Oh,
You shared last time.
yeah. Here we go. Share. Yeah. And so I showed here a photo of prisoners being taken to this
Wherever. Yeah.
and here is a photo of Jews being taken to Auschwitz. I mean, the photos in my mind are eerily similar. They're both being taken to concentration camps. The biggest difference you see here is that these men and a woman here, they don't have their personal belongings. They're stripped naked, whereas the Jews were took their belongings. They were later stolen, as you know.
Yeah, actually, we explained it. The area where they stole the belongings, we covered this last time, but do you know what the prisoners called the area where they stole like belongings from people they genocided?
No, I've learned so much about the World War II.
No, this is really hilarious. It was called Command Canada.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, it's such a on the nose, so on the nose to call it Canada, to a place where you steal belongings from people you commit genocide against.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe that has something to do with why there's so many Nazis in Canada now.
Oh, exactly. So yeah, and today they allegedly rescued 4 quote unquote hostages, but apparently, according to Israeli sources themselves, 125 Gazans died. There may be more, and so.
And there were also reports that I guess in order for them to arrive to the location where these prisoners of war, these hostages, whatever, were being kept, a U.S. potentially Delta Force was involved, and they went there from the aid pier, the temporary aid pier that Joe Biden built. And they disguised themselves by hiding in those aid trucks in order to get to Nusriat Market. I think I'm pronouncing that right, which is where these people were being held. And there's video of this. There's video of those aid trucks. And there's even in a photo of one of the hostages being released, you can see what appears to be somebody in the U.S. Delta Force. And so I don't think it's tolerable to, kill 125, 140 Palestinians for the sake of, civilians for the sake of freeing 4 hostages. That being said, according to Abu Obaida, the Hamas spokesperson, Israel actually killed some of the hostages because what they did was they did a massive bombing campaign to supposedly clear the road to the location of these hostages. And in the process, apparently they killed other hostages. And so, you have all these Zionists coming onto social media to celebrate. But there's still 120 hostages left. It strikes me odd that after 7 months, they've freed, maybe 7 hostages through military force and well over 100 through diplomacy.
Yeah.
Yet Israel isn't willing to negotiate in good faith, and Zionists are celebrating this as if it's some major victory. But after 8 months, you're only able to free a little more than a handful of hostages. For me, it highlights the desperation of Israeli society and the decay of morality within Israeli society. I don't view it as a victory. I view it as a symbolic of their consistent failures.
Me too. And it seems like there is something called the Hannibal Directive that Israel follows, in that we're okay with sacrificing the hostages if it also means denying the other side their objective.
Yeah, Israel would rather dead Israeli civilians or soldiers than Hamas having negotiating leverage, without a doubt.
Yeah. So many, Dan Cohen did a great report on this, but many hostage families are upset about this because
Yeah,
Israel in its prison has thousands of Palestinians held hostage. So a simple hostage exchange would solve this whole problem immediately.
yeah. And, you know, the US and Israel are demanding Hamas disarms in order to have a ceasefire.
Oh my God. Did you
Um,
see Ken Klippenstein's awful, dumb tweet?
oh, I did, but I don't recall exactly what it said.
Oh, okay. Basically, he said because Hamas doesn't care about Gazans, they won't disarm. But come on, like, should the only armed group that's in Gaza disarm itself? Like, how is that going to help Gazans?
Yeah, the worst thing for Palestine would be if Hamas decided to disarm. Uh, then they have zero deterrence to the apartheid. They have zero deterrence to the genocide. They have zero deterrence to the pogroms.
Yeah, and Israel has government has repeatedly used genocidal rhetoric from Amalek, the children of darkness, to children of light. Yoav
Hmm.
Gallant has said wipe them, like, really horrible things, and
Yeah,
so there is no. It's a ridiculous idea of liberalism there.
it is. Yeah, and it's a ridiculous demand for Israel to put. You know, there for me, I think there's a difference between a negotiated victory, like the U.S. did with Japan in World War II. That wasn't a ceasefire. That was a negotiated victory. That's what Israel wants. They want a negotiated victory. They don't want a ceasefire. Means that both sides come out equally and they both get what they want. A negotiated victory means one side loses, aka disarms, and the other side doesn't and occupies you. Like that's what Israel is asking for. Um, and it's just a complete non-starter. And the reality of that is obviously because Netanyahu has to maintain power, and if he does in good faith negotiate with Hamas and the resistance, then his cabinet will be dissolved by these ultranationalist, extremist, fascist figures like Itamar Ben-Gvir and Basil Smotrich, who are part of the Jewish Power Party and are necessary for Netanyahu to maintain his cabinet, which, if dissolved, would basically see him out of office, and it would prompt new elections, which means that Netanyahu would lose his sort of presidential immunity to the corruption case that's pending against him, and he would likely go to prison. Even before October 7th, there were massive protests in the streets of Tel Aviv and all over Israel against Netanyahu for his judicial reform laws that he was trying to push through for the express reason of allowing him to avoid a corruption trial. And so those cracks in Israeli society were showing beforehand, and they're coming out in even more force now. And so, from Hamas's view, they're under a genocide. What it, it's hard to see what Hamas has to gain from the ceasefire as is. Disarming, it's a non-starter. Allowing Israel to occupy Gaza, it's a non-starter. They like Americans would be willing to die for their land. I think that's something a lot of Americans could probably relate to. And so I don't see a ceasefire happening. Joe Biden is under increased pressure to make one happen so he can try to win back some of the Muslim and progressive vote that he's lost. But I don't see it happening unless he threatens to stop aid or takes even more drastic measures. I don't think it's going to happen. And if the Netanyahu government dissolves, it could go in a few directions. You could get somebody who is willing to negotiate with the resistance in good faith, which is likely not going to happen, or you could get a more messianic figure in power like Itamar Ben-Gvir and Basil Smotrich, who would be more likely to finish up with Gaza, move to the West Bank and Lebanon. Now, it's possible the alternative, in my mind, it's possible that there will be a ceasefire and the war will come to an end in Gaza. Uh, and that will be conveniently timed to free up Israel to go to war with Lebanon and Hezbollah, which
Oh,
they are.
actually, this is very interesting. Yesterday, I read that Hezbollah has been like poking, kind of like targeting their missiles to figure out where, like, so the Iron Dome is not meant to like block 100%. They just choose whatever's important and try to like shoot it down.
Yeah, they're
So
gathering data points.
yeah. So Hezbollah has been able to figure out where the holes are and poking holes, and so Israel's actually really worried about Hezbollah because Hezbollah handed Israel its only military defeat in 2006.
Yeah, and it's developed significantly since then. The Hezbollah of 2006 is not the Hezbollah of 2024. It's significantly more powerful, and Israel cannot even win a war against Hamas. So they'd have no chance at winning a war against Hezbollah in 2024. That being said, every state, whether you like them or not, or recognize their legitimacy or not, needs to protect their borders. It is a matter of national security. And currently, Hezbollah, according to some reports, has emptied out settlements in the north to the measure of 200,000 settlers.
Wow.
This is active material and tangible decolonization happening because of Hezbollah. This is the biggest security threat that Israel has faced in its entire existence. And up until this point, they have been powerless to stop it. And what happens if they don't stop it? Settlements keep going the way of previous ones. They keep getting evacuated. And Israel loses the security of its borders. Again, that is an existential threat. And so it's intolerable from the point of view of the Israeli establishment. And so there have been reports that Israel is planning on invading Lebanon. And there have been threats that they will turn Beirut into Gaza. And all this is extremely believable to me, despite the fact that obviously Israel could not win a war against Hezbollah. They do have a sort of ethnic supremacist arrogance, and they do have the national security need to secure their borders. If they can't do that, then they fail as a state. And so it's possible Hezbollah will cease its attacks if this war comes to an end. I think that they would. That being said, Israel might not, if the war in Gaza does come to an end, if the genocide in Gaza does come to an end, Israel could say, well, we want revenge, and we're going to go in anyways.
That makes perfect sense. And unfortunately, if that happens, there might draw Syria and Iraq and even Iran into the conflict.
I don't think it will be directly dragged into the conflict. I do agree with Syria, Iraq. You could see a deterioration of relations further with Egypt. Jordan is completely bought out, but I don't know how long the people in Jordan or Egypt will tolerate what their governments are allowing to happen right now. But Iran and Israel had their shot, right?
Yeah.
When Israel bombed the embassy in Damascus, Iran struck them really hard, harder than they've ever been hit. And Israel's response was lukewarm. They sent a few drones. So if Israel wanted war with Iran, it would have already happened. And Iran certainly doesn't want war with Israel. From Iran's perspective, it's far more intelligent and strategically viable for them to support the axis of resistance and sit back and allow Israel to destroy itself while the axis of resistance hits them as well. So it's far better for Iran to support the axis of resistance through intelligence, through resources, arms, etc., than for Iran to engage in a direct conflict of Iran. And I think the same thing goes for the United States. Under the current president, that the United States does not want war with Iran because they had their opportunity. They had their golden ticket. If they wanted to go to a war with Iran, it would have happened when this bombing of Israel happened. That being said, under Trump presidency, the equation could change, um, especially since it seems to me like Trump is not only just sucking up to the worst Zionists alive, like Miriam Adelson, who has conditioned her money on
West Bank expansion.
West Bank expansion, continuing her late husband's legacy of being a Zionist warlord and funding settlements in the West Bank and funding the construction of settlements in the West Bank. And not only that, but if you've seen some of the short lists for Trump's vice presidential pick, these are the same old war hawks that, the same old neocons that were around in his previous administration, which led him to assassinate Qasem Soleimani. So yeah, the equation can always change every 4 years in the United States in a way that makes the U.S. A dangerous partner at best.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Quickly, okay, so this is, we have about 8 minutes left. So let's quickly bring the last two news stories. One is that Brianna Joy Gray, she was a correspondent at The Hill. She was fired for basically having a debate with a whole bunch of Zionists. Janet, do you want to bring up? Yeah. So the Hill also had fired Katie Halper before for the same reason. But last week there was a debate between her and a few Zionists where she said something about...
It was like the sister of a hostage or something?
No, she rolled her eyes at the sister of a hostage. But I don't think she was fired for that. Was she?
It seems like that might have been the red line.
Rolling her eyes. That's not even speech.
People who are familiar with the situation, my boss, Kim Iverson, suggested, who was herself let go from The Hill for talking about COVID and whatnot, or for not being allowed to talk to Fauci after bringing them like millions of views for COVID, suggested that was likely the red line. Yeah.
That makes sense.
The rolling of the eyes at the sister of a hostage.
I jumped in just to give a little gossip on this. Nomiki Konst tweeted out about her, Bree was never their friend.
Oh yeah, and then Nomiki was saying that how Bree helped the enemies and was justifying Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But the thing is that anyone who knows the situation about Russia and Ukraine need to understand that the war started in 2014 with Ukraine being the aggressor. It did not start in 2022.
Oh, see, now you're a Putin shill, Ella.
Yeah, of course I am. I've always been.
No, I mean, no, for sure. I mean, but that's what they say when you talk about the history. History only exists for Putin stooges. So
exactly, yeah. You can't talk about the 2014 like everything disgusting that happened, like the torture, the amputation, all the disgusting things that the Ukrainians...
the bombing of civilians, ethnic Russians.
Yeah, exactly. And the targeting, the ATO operation, anti-terrorist operations, where it was just indiscriminate bombing.
And you can't talk about the fact that the Minsk Accords were fake, basically, or the fact that a NATO military on Russia's border is a national security threat, or the fact that negotiations have been Zelensky was willing to negotiate
until
the war until Boris Johnson told him not to. Yeah,
exactly.
You can't talk about any of that. Yeah,
no. You just have to kind of draw a box. But speaking of a good thing we are talking about Maidan, because there's a segue. They want to create another Maidan in Georgia. Jenna, do you want to bring up this tweet? So what happened is that last week, Georgia signed into a law that says that if you are a foreign agent, or if you get funding, if your organization gets more than 20% funding from a foreign source, you have to register as a foreign agent, which makes sense.
Or I think it's just that you have to disclose your funding.
Yeah, you have to disclose it. It's not that different than FARA in America.
No, it's basically the same thing. And it's, they say this opposition, they say it's a Russian law. But
They say that because Russia had a very similar law, anti-NED law,
yeah,
basically that says
Nicaragua has the same law, and the European Union is actually in the process of considering the same law themselves. So,
yeah,
which these protesters are so adamant on wanting to join the European Union. So it really doesn't make sense at all.
exactly. And so now, so the main party that has the majority of the seats in the parliament is called Georgian Dream, and they basically passed the law, and you have a lot of European officials meddling
and the
in it.
president then vetoed it, but then they overrode the veto.
Yeah, president, because in Georgia you just need 51% to override a veto. You don't need an overwhelming majority. And the president used to be a citizen of France until the Color Revolution, and she herself used to be in the French Foreign Services. So she
and she doesn't apparently her Georgian language speaking skills are quite lacking. According to my brother, Alex Rubinstein, he said that she once said that her in Georgian, she was speaking in Georgian, and she once said that the great thing about Georgia is that you can just put anything in any hole or something.
What does she mean to say?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea, but that's what she said.
So now, because of this, the U.S. is having a temper tantrum, and basically it is sanctioning these officials who are mainly from the Georgian Dream Party, which have the majority of the seats in the parliament, with the same old travel ban and stealing their, freezing their assets, et cetera, which is the identical playbook.
Yeah. And so what this is they want to open another front against Russia. They want to turn Georgia into Ukraine.
Exactly. And anyone who's seen what happened in Ukraine in 2014 will definitely want to oppose this law. And and now they're having a whole bunch of they're having a whole bunch of protesters protesting with signs in English, and and some of them are obvious. They're doing this, Europe needs to come and invade us kind of thing, and please sanction us kind of thing, which no reasonable actual human being would do.
Hate their own people. I mean, you see that with the Nicaraguan exiles who were released from prison and sent to the United States. They want sanctions because they hate their own people, and they want them to suffer under those sanctions. So it's very unpatriotic, to say the least.
Exactly. No, I agree with you. So, but that's the update. We have about 2 minutes left. Thank you, whoever is joining us at 3 a.m. Do we have any questions from the audience? Let's just quickly stay.
Happy to answer any questions.
Let's see. Going once, going twice. I'm so okay. Jenny Lynn says she has COVID. I'm so sorry. I hope you feel better. Okay. Somebody way earlier asked if the companies want to know, will the Nicaraguan canal save them transportation costs?
Yeah, I think so. It's a lot closer to the United States, so if you're shipping to the United States, it'll save you transportation costs. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So please go to historically.net and become a paid subscriber. We really need that. We're having some issues, so please become a paid subscriber. It's only $5 a month. Give us super chats if you can. And tomorrow I'll be with Real Progressives to discuss part 3 of Imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism. And thank you again for joining us, Ben. I hope you have a good rest of the... Oh, somebody else asked, when will they begin the construction of the canal?
It's hard to say. If I had to guess, it would be finished in 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
But there's been no, they haven't put shovel to dirt, as it were, at this point.
Okay, they haven't put
They're likely. My guess is that they're likely still in the process of negotiating contracts with the Chinese company who will oversee it being built and provide the technology necessary.
That makes sense. Okay, so they said thanks. Any other questions? Nope. I guess so. That's all.
Ben, do you have anything you're working on you want to share, or where people can find you and stuff?
Yeah, the best place to find me is on X at Ben F Rubinstein. That's BEN, the letter F, RUBINSTEIN. I am a producer for the Kim Iverson show, and I will be joining her on stream from time to time. So if you want to see more of me on video, that's the place to do it.
Okay. One more question. Another color revolution for Ortega?
No, absolutely not. The overwhelming majority of Nicaraguans support Daniel Ortega and the Sandinistas. He has something like an 87% approval rating at this point, and they learned their lessons. What Sandinistas said after the color revolution in 2018, they said that they'll respond before the police do. So you will have, if something like that were to happen, which there is no popular support for in the country anymore, but if something like that were to happen, it would be shut down quick.
Okay. So I guess with that, I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.